Welcome to Girls Gone Wellness, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
We're so excited. And full disclosure, as we were talking about before we started recording, I spent an unhealthy amount of time listening to your podcast episodes over the last few weeks. You have an amazing podcast called Let's Get Vulnerable, which I also love the name. I'm going to do my very best today to try to not make this like an all access view into like a personal therapy session. But I am so excited to talk to you today about a really, really big topic. It's a topic that everybody's talking about, attachment theory in dating and relationships. And I was saying to Jeanette too, I think what's so cool about a topic like this is that you can be single and it applies, but you can also be dating, you can be married, you can be in a long term relationship. How you show up in a relationship applies to all of us, right? So, super, super excited to dive in with you today.
Cannot wait. Love that you're binging the podcast. There's a lot of content there. So
There
yeah,
really
I'm
is.
I'm so excited to talk about this.
Awesome.
Amazing. So, sorry, Vic, go ahead.
That's good. Tell us about yourself, your credentials, and how you got into not only psychology, but also into this field of like attachment and relationships. Like, where did that passion come from?
Okay, I'll give you the short version because we'd be here forever. So, um, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a psychologist. Even by middle school, I was telling people, okay, I want to be a psychologist. So I was really young. And I think it's because I was fascinated with people's stories. I was the girl on the playground. I wasn't like playing around being a normal kid. I was sitting one on one with people in the playground having deep conversations. And I just knew it's always what I wanted to do. And then through my own childhood trauma, losing my mom at a young age, and then honestly watching my dad go through some difficult things in his relationships and his own marriages, and how that impacted me. And from a really young age, I started to become fascinated with how do people have healthy relationships. And then when I started dating, I was making every mistake that you could possibly make. I had, very unhealthy dating patterns. I was in my second year of achieving my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I found myself in a relationship with a narcissist, which anyone who's been there knows how hard and painful that is. And at the end of that relationship, I didn't recognize myself. It was my rock bottom, and I made this vow to myself that I would understand, how do you have a healthy relationship? I see some people are able to do it. Why are some people able to do it and other people not? And I became obsessed with that question. So I threw myself into attachment styles at that point, and just began learning everything I could about healing and attachment styles. And that's kind of when my own healing journey began. But it really wasn't, so that was about 24, 25. Wasn't until my early 30s that I could say that I really kind of found what I needed to, and I started to become securely attached myself. But I always tell people I am evidence that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Because
Mhm.
I was telling my friend the other day, I have so many terrible, toxic, crazy dating stories. I could have a second career as a romance novelist with all the past relationship experiences that I had. And now, I'm very securely attached. I'm getting married this summer. I have a
Aw.
whole different life and a really healthy relationship that I would have thought was never possible for me.
What an amazing story. And I think it's also
Mhm.
so fascinating how people come to their careers with their own experiences. Like me and Vic, we just graduated naturopathic medicine school. And a lot of the times, like even people that are in the program, they have these experiences with naturopathic doctors or like the healthcare system or whatever it is. And that's how they like come into this career and they build their career off of that. So it's super interesting to see that sometimes people have, no matter what career they're in and how they choose their career based on their own personal experiences. I always find that so fascinating.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
taking your own personal pain or the own things, your own things that you struggled with, take what you figure out about it and then go use it to help
Yeah.
people. Taking lemons, making lemonade, that's really
Mhm.
been kind of my career story. And not only is it quote unquote successful, whatever that is supposed to mean, but it's also just incredibly fulfilling. And, I've helped over 700 women at this point. And I kid you not, it's like every few days I'm getting stories of, oh, we finally had a baby, or we just got married, or, I'm in the
Mm.
best relationship I've ever been in. And I just love getting to see the ripple effect of, me deciding to heal and then all these people that I get to help. And it's such a gift.
Mhm. That's so incredible. Can you walk us through what attachment theory is and why it's so foundational in relationships?
This is always so hard because I'm like, do we have 5 hours? But
Exactly.
so to make it super simple, attachment theory, it started in the 1950s. John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, they were originally looking at the parent-child relationship. If you paid attention in Psych 101, you might remember this, right? They were looking at how does the child respond when the mother leaves the room and comes back. And through extensive research, years of, being able to run these studies, they came up with 4 attachment styles. And these attachment styles explain how you form and maintain relationships. So, what are the things that you do to form a relationship? And then, how do you maintain a relationship? And it's your ways of being in relationships. So, by understanding your attachment style, you're understanding how your brain is wired to show up in relationships, which includes your beliefs, your behaviors, right? Why you're getting the results that you're getting in relationships. And I know when I was in unhealthy dating patterns, that was the most frustrating thing is, why am I doing what I'm doing? And then also, why are none of these relationships working out? And understanding your attachment style gives you a lot of insight into that why. But yeah,
Mhm.
there are 4 main styles, and I'm happy to go into each of them.
Yeah,
It's
let's
it's
dive
ba-
in.
Mhm.
yeah, you're ready. Okay, we're like
Oh, we're ready.
we're ready. Okay, I love it. Um, I love the name of your podcast, by the way, Girls Gone Wellness. Like
Thanks.
this is iconic. This is so good. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm
We're
also
gonna
into
take
all
that clip
things
from you.
wellness.
Oh,
So
I love it.
yes. Number one, I would say anxious. Let's go there first. So with anxious
Mhm.
attachment, you are devaluing yourself and then you're overvaluing others. So this is classic people pleasing, self-abandoning.
Mhm.
Fear of abandonment is at the core. So to make it practical, this is the girl that's sending the 17 text messages when they don't hear back, right? You're spiraling, you're imagining worst case scenario. And I think one important distinction with anxious attachment, I always say this, it's like your reassurance bucket has holes in it,
Mm.
meaning no matter how much reassurance your partner gives you, you can't internalize the reassurance. So you're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And as you can imagine, this is exhausting, not only on the person with anxious attachment, but also on their partner. Does that one resonate for you?
I
I'm
was
like,
gonna
that's
say,
me.
yeah. I was gonna say that's the person where it's like you're 10 years into marriage and you're like, you're still like me, right? Like you still want to be with me, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'll just take a second to, because maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but when you have an anxious attachment style, like, I mean, full disclosure, I would say that if I have an attachment style, that's the one it's going to be. And
Mhm.
for me, it's like, I know better than to send the 17 text messages, but I want to send the 17 text messages. Like, it's really hard
Yes.
for me to put my phone down and not send those text messages. So would that still be like, yeah, that qualifies? Or is it like someone who just like does it?
So I love that you talked about this. So you're talking about, the stages of healing of okay,
Mm.
Now you have the awareness, you know it's not how the secure version of you would show up, and you're not sending it. So you're not doing the behavior, but you're still
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it internally,
Mm.
right? Which
Yeah.
we want to shift. So basically you're just on that healing spectrum of you have the
Okay.
awareness,
There you
which
go,
is
Vic.
good. Okay. She's like, yeah. um yeah, and I think that that's where healing starts, right? We get the awareness. And I do want to add this because this is important. It's not like you choose your attachment style. It's not like you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, let me just be super anxious and make relationships horrible and painful."
Yeah.
You develop your attachment style out of survival. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to connect with our caregivers, we need to connect with other human beings. That's part of survival, right? So at some
Mm-hmm.
point you learned these ways of thinking about relationships, you learned fear of abandonment, you learned asking for a ton of reassurance, you learned it as a way to survive in
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So it's just really important to have a ton of compassion, not judge ourselves, and just
Yeah.
realize, okay, at one point that was what I needed to do, and now
Mm-hmm.
I can show up differently. So I think
Mm-hmm.
just self-compassion
I love it.
always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Should
Mm-hmm.
we move on to avoidant? Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Let's
avoidant
Yeah.
do
attachment.
it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So this is the attachment style that, and I don't know why I'm leading with this, but I think sometimes this is getting confused as narcissistic personality disorder. I see that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And with avoidant attachment, it really is intimacy is not safe. So being close to someone, depending on them, that doesn't feel safe to your nervous system. And hyper independence is what they've learned to do in coping in relationships. So maintaining independence, not depending on someone, is the way that they can feel safe in a relationship. And what this is the person that you go on the great date with them. You feel like, oh, we're so connected. We had this deep conversation. Things are going amazing. And then you don't hear from them for a week
Mm-hmm.
and you're going, what happened? With avoidant attachment, there's a lot of unconscious compulsion style distancing that is happening where they are
Mm-hmm.
pulling away, whether it's through not communicating, whether it's through making those sarcastic jokes and finding ways to kind of devalue you or devalue the relationship,
Yeah.
comparing you to their ex-girlfriend. Isn't that a fun one that we've all experienced, right? Like that is classic avoidant attachment. Um, and I think the big thing here is realizing that it's not that they don't want intimacy. They do. They find it to be very scary, and it's very hard to relax and love and let people in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
they're oftentimes disconnected from their emotions. I just want to talk about emotional, being able to regulate your emotions. With avoidant attachment, you're disconnected. So you're not even connected to your own emotions. So hard for you to connect to someone else's. Anxious attachment, we're overly connected to our emotions, and at the same time a lot of we're outsourcing our self-soothing. We're
Mm-hmm.
looking to others a lot to be able to regulate our emotions instead of learning how to self-soothe. So avoidant, they're disconnected, they're not even experiencing emotions. Anxious, overly connected, but they're looking to others to help get them back to baseline. So, and then
Mm-hmm.
these two are attracted to each other, they're like magnets.
I was gonna
they
ask.
they fit each other's models, and they fit each other's beliefs
Yeah.
about love, and it's like, if you are anxiously attached, you walk into a room, there's 99 secure people and there's one avoidantly attached person, you will
Yep.
find that avoidantly attached person. That is your emotional
Mm-hmm.
home. The love is
That's me.
unavailable. Yeah, she's like, "Hi, it's me." Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is too real. Okay. Can we actually maybe dive into that? Like why do before we get to because there's two more attachment styles, right? So why do anxious and avoidance, like you would think that you wouldn't want to end up like as an anxious person, I don't want to end up with someone who's avoidant because the cycle it just gets worse. Like now I'm more anxious. Why the heck are we so attracted to the chaos?
So, this is fascinating. I want to just say this, there's a lot to that question, but I want to just make it easy. Number one is your biology, it's your nervous system. The emotionally unavailable partner, someone who is not attuned to you, which is a ton of, their body language, their physical presence, someone who is not attuned to your emotions, that is your emotional home. That's your nervous system's home. That's what you're accustomed to. That's what
Mhm.
you're wired to be attracted to.
Mm.
And then there's something really fascinating that I have found to be true for myself and all of my clients, and a lot of people don't talk about this, which is repetition compulsion. Vic, when you were listening to the podcast, did you hear anything about that topic?
I've heard it all.
Okay, good.
I've
So
listened
you're
to
familiar.
so many episodes.
Okay, I love that. So for people who aren't familiar, it's this idea that we're actually taking our childhood unfinished business and those wounded dynamics, whatever they were. For a lot of people, it was an unavailable parent that really wasn't attuned. And we are repeating that same dynamic in our adult romantic relationships with the unconscious desire that this time I would get a different outcome. And
Mhm.
the brain wrongly believes that if I can get a different outcome this time, it'll make up for everything I experienced in the past. So that, like, this time I'll get them to love me. This time I'll get them to be emotionally available. I'll get
Yeah.
them to fully choose me. And then I can finally prove that I'm good enough or that I'm worthy
Mhm.
of love. And so
Mhm.
so many of us, and this was me all through my 20s, were reenacting these patterns and we don't even realize it.
Mhm.
Right. Is that kind of why? I mean, maybe this is a whole different type of thing. I think it is now that I'm thinking of it. But you know how some people are like, oh, for women especially, if you're dating a male partner, you kind of look for those traits that are maybe in like a father figure or like a father. Like, is that attachment style that you're looking for in that partner like similar to what you had with like a male father figure, or is that kind of like a whole separate topic? I'm just curious now because I hear that a lot.
Yes, it is. It's all connected, right? It lends itself to helping your brain recreate that dynamic. That's why, you hear people, and I hate this term, but they'll talk about daddy issues or like
Yeah.
being attracted to someone who's like your dad or like your mom even.
Mm,
And it's that you are recreating that dynamic and it feels familiar because the brain is going, oh my gosh, the upside of this is amazing. If I can just get it to work out this time, it's going to make up for everything I experienced. But
Mhm.
here's the terrible thing that we all know to be true. What happens when we do the same thing over and over again? Right? We get the same outcomes and actually it's
Yeah.
insanity and it drives us
right.
crazy. So this was me dating the same guy over and over again, different
Mhm.
haircut, different taste in music, whatever, but it was the same guy, it was the same
Mm,
dynamic over and over again, getting the same result and obviously driving me crazy, and that's a
right.
lot of women I speak to.
Mhm.
Definitely. Okay, let's go back to the other two attachment styles.
Yes, disorganized attachment. So disorganized attachment, this is about 5 to maybe 8% of the population, and this attachment style is highly associated with childhood trauma. And this is where you are simultaneously experiencing anxious and avoidant strategies at the same time. So you are craving closeness. You have that anxious desire of, I want to be very, very close to someone. And at the same time, you're terrified of it. So this is where we get that push pull dynamic. You're in the relationship, you're out of the relationship. You don't want to be abandoned, but you also don't want to depend on the person. If you've
Mhm.
ever dated someone where you're like, that was complete chaos, completely unpredictable. I have no idea what happened. It's likely that they were showing up with a disorganized attachment style. Um, and then when people talk about trauma bonds and like really unhealthy, really toxic relationships, I think of Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. That's that is typically we have two disorganized people who
Mhm.
got together, and when one person's in the relationship, the other person's out, and
Hmm.
then they swap. And it just can cause a lot of chaos, a lot of pain, and a lot of drama. And I
Mm.
this was my past attachment style. So I have so much empathy for anyone who identifies with it. I know I mean it's incredibly painful, exhausting. You
Mhm.
feel like relationships are almost like another full-time job that you have in your life because they're just taking up so much space and so much emotional energy.
Mhm. You you must as a psychologist. I mean, I think I took like 2 psych courses, and in those courses, I was like diagnosing everyone around me. Do you feel like that? Like, do you look at celebrities and couples and you're like, "Oh, that's a disorganized relationship." Do you have that ability?
Obviously, I always do this with compassion and
Yeah.
empathy and knowing that I don't always see the full picture, right?
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things is watching Love is Blind and doing the attachment style breakdown for Love is Blind. So that's a guilty pleasure, for sure. It's
I love it.
helpful when we can see it acted out, right? Like just
Mhm.
to see it and then to be able to learn from it. I think it's really helpful.
Mhm. So, okay, so we know that like our relationship with our caregivers affects our attachment style as adults. What about like for example, I would classify myself as someone who's anxiously attached, but I would also say I had a really great childhood and really wonderful parents. Could it be that like one specific relationship can lead to this? Like, are there other reasons, or like how does that kind of work with people who like do feel like they never really had that kind of like abandonment or anything in childhood?
I love this question because I get this a lot. People who come to me and they say, "My childhood was so good. My parents were there. My parents didn't get divorced. Like this was a great
Yeah.
childhood." Um the reality is that your attachment style is impacted by all of the significant relationships in your life.
Mm.
And a really common thing that I see for people, especially who experience, let's say, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized in their romantic life, maybe they have secure friendships, they have other relationships that are very secure, but in their romantic relationships, they can't show up secure. Here's a common thing, and I want to see if this lands for either of you, is that your early romantic relationship experiences were not secure. So maybe
Mm.
that first boyfriend, second boyfriend, third, fourth, somewhere early in your dating life, you had
Mhm.
an experience that was not securely attached. So then your brain used that template for
Mm.
romantic relationships. But I also
Mhm.
want to throw it out there, significant friendships. I worked with people where when we dig down into their trauma, it was actually a grade school friendship that caused them to develop a certain attachment style, which is wild,
Yeah.
right? Sibling relationships. Some people have had a lot of relational trauma with siblings. So
Mhm.
this idea that, oh, it has to be the parents, that's pretty outdated. We know that any significant relationship can impact your attachment style.
Mhm. We're about to get very vulnerable here, but in one of your episodes, you talked about being heavier as a child. And
Yes.
that's something that I also experienced. So I had childhood obesity. And for me growing up, it was a lot of like, I'm not good enough for relationships
Mm.
until I'm smaller. And I think that that shows up for me in like an anxious way where it's like I have to prove myself. And if I don't get picked, like I want to send 17 text messages because I just want them to choose me. Right. And
Yeah.
I think that, like, I don't know, would that be something that could lead to
Oh,
an anxious
yeah.
attachment? Yeah.
Oh,
When you
yeah.
talked about that, it was like, oh my gosh, same.
It's
Hmm.
it's this whole thing of, you know, gosh, we just want to be loved. We want people to like us. And obviously, especially for women, also for men, but especially for women, body image, the way that we are perceiving ourselves, but also the way that other people are perceiving us.
Hmm.
Obviously, that's going to have a huge impact on our relationships. And I definitely try to talk about that because I know if we've had body image issues or we've had bullying or those moments where we haven't been invited to the cool girl table,
Yeah.
all of that impacts our beliefs about relationships and our beliefs about our worthiness. So of course that's going to impact your attachment style.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I never understood the whole thing where it's like you kind of have to, I don't know if I want to use the word blame, but blame everything on your parents because yeah, there's so many things that come into building your personality, building like your tendencies and all of these things. So it makes so much sense that friends and aunts and uncles and all these other like relationships in your life can definitely impact you. I know you kind of talked about this a little bit before, but could you give, just so people can understand it maybe in more of like a real world way, of how dating would look like for anxious, avoidant, secure, and disorganized styles?
Yes, absolutely. So with anxious, I think it's going to be a lot of second guessing yourself. The first thing that comes to mind when I'm describing this is lack of self-trust. This is the person who they're going to brunch with their girlfriends and they're showing them the text messages and they're saying, "Okay, girls, what do I say back to the guy? Like help me," right? They're like crafting the text messages together
Yeah.
because they just don't trust themselves. They're like, "I'm going to
Mm.
make a mistake." So, it's a lot of yeah, second guessing yourself, um, fear of abandonment, the stories about, oh my gosh, they must be interested in someone else. They're no longer interested in me. They saw my Instagram story and they didn't reply. I mean, we have to throw social media into this, right? It's like
Yeah.
you become a detective. You're being hyper vigilant about everything they're doing. And then it
Mhm.
all has a story about, why you're being abandoned, right?
Mhm.
And then it's a lot of giving your energy to that person. So maybe you're even self-abandoning. You're not going to your yoga class. You're not doing your normal nighttime routine and going to bed by 9 p.m. because you're up analyzing their Instagram habits of the day, right? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of things that with anxious attachment, I think it just makes dating exhausting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
With avoidant attachment, it's a lot about still maintaining your independence. And I talked about this, but that compulsive, not even, you're not even aware you're doing it, but you're finding ways to distance from this person. So you want the connection, but you don't want to get too close, right? So it's a lot
Mhm.
of that. Okay, how do I kind of keep this? You have beliefs as an avoidantly attached person that you're a bad partner, that you're not good at relationships. So you're kind of going, okay, how do I keep this person happy? But I'm not good at relationships, but I really want to maintain my independence. So it can feel a lot like a balancing act. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want them to think that I don't want them to see them, but it's too much for me. So, how do I just sort of do the bare minimum to keep them happy? Right.
Mhm.
And then once again, a lot of like probably going out with your friends or the classic work just got so crazy busy. Work is so, so busy. I'm sorry I don't have time to communicate, right? Throwing yourself into
Mhm.
work. So it's all these things that come up in order to distance yourself from the other person. And then
Mhm.
disorganized, take those two things that I described, put them together, happening at the same time. It's super fun.
Great.
So a lot of you never know what kind of response you're going to get. One moment you're showing up, oh, I really miss you. I want to spend time with you. And then the next is, hey, I need a solo weekend to myself and I don't want to talk. So a lot
Mhm.
of unpredictable responses, a lot of chaos. And then let's talk about secure. I know we didn't talk about secure
Yeah.
attachment. So,
Right.
secure attachment in dating. Oh boy. Okay. So, you have high self worth. You are no longer outsourcing your self soothing. You have interdependence. I love this term. You know that you can depend on others, but you also depend on yourself. So you
Mm.
can go to someone, if you're struggling, you can ask for reassurance from a partner, but you could also give that reassurance to yourself. With secure attachment, you enjoy dating, but you're not so connected to the outcome. You're not waiting for the relationship to make you happy or say, "Oh, now that I'm in a relationship, I can finally be happy, right? Or I'm finally enough." You're not waiting for the relationship to mean anything about you or your worthiness. And I would say this that you're really happy with your life. You have fallen in love with your life, the people in your life. You realize that being in a relationship is not about proving that you're worthy of love, or that, oh, finally you have love, you realize that a relationship is simply a multiplier. And so it just creates more love that you already have in your life. And you're emotionally
Mhm.
regulated and confident, and dating is fun. I'll throw that in there.
Yeah, dating
Wow.
is
I
fun.
love that.
Um, okay, beautiful description of all of those. Is it safe to say if you're not a securely attached person, you are anxious, disorganized, avoidant, whatever it is, that you are a bit emotionally unavailable? Like, I think we sometimes think about avoidance being emotionally unavailable, but then I wonder, like, if the anxiously attached person is looking for that validation and that they're worthy and all of that, like, are they also like ready for a relationship there, or is that a sign of emotional unavailability too?
I'm so glad you asked this, because the anxiously attached people, and this was, when I had periods of being very anxiously attached, I would think this. A
Mhm.
lot of times you think you are the most emotionally available because you're going, oh, I'm so giving and I am so attuned to the other person. And you're
Mhm.
acting as their best friend and their unpaid therapist, and you're just very present in this person's life. So you're like, I am so emotionally available. um,
Mhm.
but the reality is that when you have anxious attachment, you're also very scared of being deeply seen and being deeply known. And there's a lot of, that feeling of, okay, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. So there's actually a lot of ways that if someone was emotionally available towards you, you wouldn't be attracted to it. So you confuse self-abandoning, being overly attuned to someone else, you confuse that as emotional availability, but what it is it's actually just avoidance of
Mhm.
your own emotions, and an avoidance of you becoming emotionally available. So yes, if you have anxious attachment, avoidant, or disorganized, you are emotionally unavailable. It's just that that unavailability shows up in different ways.
Mhm. Okay, that I think was like the reality check I needed. um,
It's one of
let's
those tough love things. I remember
you
the
need it.
day I realized that, I can tell you, and it was like, I was like, I really don't want, I wish I could unrealize this.
Yeah.
It's a painful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so easy for like me and for people I know too. Like even my close friends were very similar in this. But it's easy for us to be like we're so giving, we're so loving. Like why don't we have these healthy relationships? But when these healthy relationships are there, we often don't want them.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Wait, am I the problem?"
The fear
You
of,
know?
because there's a lot of perfectionism. There's a lot of like, oh, if
Yeah.
I am a certain way, if you don't really see me, then you won't abandon me.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'm going to be attracted to people who are not actually emotionally available, because that just feels a
Yeah.
lot safer. Um, but obviously it doesn't work out, does it? It's not a
No.
good pattern.
No, it's not. You mentioned earlier self abandonment, and I think that's a huge one that we need to talk about. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to self abandon in dating, and how do we stop doing it?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. For all the girls that picked up a new music genre or pretended to like fishing, or,
Oh my
went
gosh.
on the ski trip. I mean, it's so many things, right? It can be that surface level thing of, okay, if I'm like them, and this happens a lot with anxious attachment, if I can become like them, then they won't abandon me because I fit into their life perfectly and I like all the things they like and I do all the things that they do. So it's that codependency, the pull towards
Hmm.
codependency, right? So that's one form of self-abandonment. And then it shows up in other ways. It shows up in disconnecting from what your needs are, disconnecting from your emotional experience, beliefs about, oh, I don't want to bring anything up that's difficult or that would, cause potential conflict, because if I do, then the relationship might end. So I'm going to be the quote unquote cool girl, right? I'm going to just be the cool version of myself. But when we do that over time, we lose ourselves in the relationship, And I think what people don't realize is that if you self-abandon for long enough, you will build resentment and you will
Mhm.
eventually want to get out of the relationship, right? Because you are looking in the mirror and you're going, "Oh, I'm not happy. I'm not myself." So by self-abandoning, if we do it for long enough periods of time, we get to resentment and the relationship is going to end that way. So
Wow.
it's such a coping strategy because we believe it's going to help us not be abandoned, but it always backfires. It always backfires.
Mhm.
Mhm.
In relationships or in marriage or just longer term relationships, you hear a lot about you have to compromise. Like it's all about compromise. How do you balance compromise versus like self
Mm.
abandonment?
Oh, that is such a wonderful question. You know, my fiance and I, we are together now for 4 years. We're, getting married this summer. He loves fly fishing. I do not like fly fishing. So we have different hobbies. We have things that we like to do that are very different. And we did this thing a long time ago. We decided we have solo Saturdays where
Mm.
we go do our own thing on Saturdays. We get to do the things that fill us up. And then we also have time that is kind of our sacred check-in time, our time as a couple. We always spend Sundays together. We always spend Thursday morning. We have our little couples meeting. We check in with each other with some coffee. So we have very intentional time together, intentional time apart. I think that's one practical way that we have allowed ourselves to compromise. Um, but here, I don't even know if I like the term compromise. I
Mhm.
think that gets overused in marriage. I think it's about you know each other well enough and you know the relationship well enough that you work together as a team to help each other get what you want as individuals while being in the relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe there are seasons where, okay, I'm helping you a little bit more in what you want, and then other times where maybe, my partner would help me more. But overall, I hate this idea that marriage is supposed to make us abandon ourselves and give things up because that's simply not the secure marriage. The secure
Mhm.
marriage
Yeah.
is you actually become more of who you really are because you have a secure base, you have
Mm.
someone that believes in you, that you know is going to be there, and they help you take more risks, do more of the things that really light you up. But here's the thing is that both people have to want that for the other person, right? Both people have to say,
Mm.
yeah, we get to become more of who we really are in this marriage.
Okay. I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah, that was a really, really good answer. What
I'm
is
I'm
the difference?
thinking through it as you're asking me. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I have to think.
Yeah.
I feel like now that I'm in my married woman era here in a few months, it's things that I'm thinking more deeply about in terms of
Yeah.
long-term marriage and partnership. What does it actually look like? And how do we be very careful not to fall into the things that society says has to be true? And instead
Yes.
we say we get to
Yeah.
co-create the kind of marriage that we both want and not
Mhm.
just slip
Mhm.
into whatever it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So true. I feel like with social media too, and like the algorithm, right? Like as soon as you see one thing about dating, you're going to get like a million different people who are experts in the field and everybody has a different opinion. And it can get really overwhelming when it's like, am I doing this right? Like, should I wait and send a text? And should I do that? Because there's so many rules that we've
Oh,
created and you never know like what's actually right and what's wrong. But yeah, your description of the whole like the word compromise itself and then also like the whole self-abandoning in long-term relationships I think is really important. I'm really glad we asked. um in early dating, what is the difference between like trauma bonding and genuine emotional intimacy? Like, I think of things like love bombing and like that first date where it's like, you know, everything about this person, and you go home and you're telling your friends, like, oh my gosh, he wants me to meet his grandma and all of the stuff. versus like, is this like trauma bonding? Like, what is the difference there?
I love this question. Oh, it's so good. So I always want my clients to start to realize that with secure attachment, and if you've had unhealthy relationships in the past, let's say you've had trauma bonding in the past, when you
Hmm.
start dating in a securely attached way, you may experience it as quote unquote boring,
Right.
right? And why is that? Okay, it's because it's slower. We're not getting the high highs of the
Hmm.
dopamine hits, the jackpot of dopamine. In toxic relationships, it's a lot like gambling addiction because we have intermittent reinforcement. We never know what's going to happen. And then when we get the jackpot, you win the money. And then in the
Yeah.
relationships, you have that intense intimacy, right? You win the jackpot. And then your brain is like, oh my gosh, I have to keep showing up in this. And this is addictive. So you have these high highs, but then you have the low lows.
Hmm.
So in trauma bonding, it's a lot like that. You never know what you're going to get. It's exciting. You have a dysregulated nervous system. It can be intense. Once again back to the gambling addict. You're going all in. You're taking all your money to the casino. You're
Hmm.
going all in, and it can feel very exciting and a
Hmm.
lot of dopamine and a lot of high highs. And then when we're dating from a securely attached place, it's the slow burn, it's the genuine curiosity. It's going on the first date. Please, for the love of God, don't go on the 3-hour long first date.
Oh no.
Do not do it.
That's my
Go
Mm.
go
favorite.
to go to a coffee shop. Go for a walk in the park. Keep it under an hour, okay? Like, so we go on this first date, we meet the person, we have a genuine curiosity about them. We go, "Oh yeah, I could spend another hour with this person. I'm genuinely interested in getting to
Mm.
know them." And then it's predictable, it's consistent, the follow through, they do what they say they're going to do. It's stable,
Hmm.
right? You guys know a lot about diet too. It makes me think about, if we are starving ourselves and then, we want to have this, huge meal because we starved ourselves. The body does really well, right? When there's consistent nourishment. And it's
Mhm.
it's the same in relationships. So our nervous system can relax, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then it's the slow burn. It builds from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
advice would you give to people that are just starting to date? Because I mean, I have friends, right, where they'll go on a first date or they'll go on a second date and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't really feel like that connection," or "Oh, it was kind of boring." Like, how do you know when you should stay with it, or like if it is that secure slow burn kind of thing, or if it's genuinely not a connection? I don't know if that makes sense,
Oh
but
yes. I get this
yeah.
question a lot. So yes. Um, I always tell people if it's like date number 3, I would give it 2, okay? I would say if you have any willingness of, yeah, I'm at least a little tiny bit interested or I'm a little bit curious, if there's even a little bit of that, give it 2 dates. And then if it comes time for the third date and you are like, you could not pay me $200 to go on this date. You're like, this is going to be torture. I don't want to do this. I would rather go do my taxes than go on this date. Then by all means, don't go on the date.
I love that.
Okay. But if
That's
you
good
if
to
you
know.
have any curiosity or if there's any, oh, I think there's a little connection, I'm open to it, then please go.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay. On that topic, this is something I see online a lot and I always wonder about. Um, People always say like the spark or the butterflies that you get is actually like nervous system dysregulation and that like you should feel comfortable and like a little bit boring. I don't know if boring is the right word there, but
Mhm.
like more of that comfort versus like that that kind of anxious feeling you get. Is that true? Or like, is it okay to have like butterflies around somebody you like? Like, I never really know anymore.
So this is such an interesting question, and I've thought about this a lot. Um, there are times when the spark and the butterflies is nervous system dysregulation. It's a sign of an insecure attachment happening. And I would say that's when you have that reaction and that's your main reaction. And maybe it lasts for a really long time. But you insecurely attached dating, you can still have some butterflies. You could still be super excited to meet someone. You can still say, whoa, this person is super good looking. Because I think sometimes people get this idea that like, oh, you're not going to be like super attracted to someone if it's secure. You could
Mhm,
still be very attracted, you could still have the connection, but you're also going to have the comfort. You're also going to have the nervous system being able to relax and things feeling very comfortable. The research on this is really interesting. What the body does in secure attachment, it's actually common for if you're in a healthy, secure relationship that you might even feel a little bit more tired, more relaxed, more calm around that
mhm,
person who is good for you. And that's actually a sign that wow, your nervous system is relaxing, your body's saying you can rest when
mhm.
you're around someone who is secure.
Hmm. I love that. Can our attachment style change over time? And then, if so, how can we work towards like that secure attachment?
Yes, I am evidence. I have, so many people who are evidence that your attachment style can change. The early research, particularly the book Attached,
Mhm,
they said that you couldn't, that okay, your attachment style is your attachment style for life. But now we have so much new research and we know thanks to neuroplasticity, so we can rewire our brains. We can learn to have new responses to things that happen to us in relationships, and we can learn to respond in a secure way. And then we also have one of my favorite things, corrective emotional experiences. What is a corrective emotional experience? It's going through something that used to be a relationship rupture and then experiencing it in a securely attached way and having a new healthy outcome. So let's say conflict for you used to mean that, okay, your partner doesn't talk to you for a week and the relationship might be over. But then now
mhm,
you're in a secure relationship and you have healthy conflict. And actually, at the end of a tough conversation, you give each other a hug and the relationship is strengthened. That's a
mhm,
corrective emotional experience, and then the brain gets to go, oh, conflict isn't bad, right? Like conflict can
mhm.
mean I grow with my partner. So over time, you will, if you're intentionally working on this, you will spend a lot more time in a securely attached place. It's unrealistic for any human to be secure 100% of the time. That just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. But we can
Hmm.
all work towards spending more time in our securely attached place, in our that version of ourselves.
Hmm. I love that. That is good to know.
Yes,
You often say, and I know you talked about this a little bit before. It's not about getting the guy; it's about being the woman who chooses the guy. Can you unpack this a little bit?
absolutely. Yeah, I think oh gosh, and early on in my life it was all about this of okay, I just have to get a relationship and I just have to make it work and I'll do whatever it takes to make it work, right?
Mhm,
Instead of this idea that is so much more healthy, which is how do I become the version of myself that naturally attracts someone into my life who is emotionally available, who adds
mhm,
value to my life, who wants to have a relationship, right? And where both of us can be invested and reciprocal in our investment and decide to make it work. So when I rewire my brain to then start being attracted to those kinds of people and those type of people being attracted to me, then it makes dating more about compatibility. This is a
mhm.
whole other topic, but then dating's fun because it's about what do we want to build together? What are our values? What do we have in common? And it's no longer about oh, we need to try to make a dynamic work and try to stay together and, try to create secure attachment, even though it feels terrible. So, yeah, I think becoming the healthy, securely attached version of yourself really creates that foundation that then
Mhm.
makes dating what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be about compatibility. It's supposed to be about intentional partnership,
Mhm.
not can we make it work?
Right. What are some practical tools that we can take to, especially as anxious girlies, to self soothe during these kind of like anxious spirals or being like emotionally triggered? Are there any tools you have for that?
Absolutely. And I think I would say this, I would want you to think about having these things available ahead of time. So, you don't, it's kind of like with nutrition, right? If you know that you're going to be starving and you're going out to an event and all they have is hot dogs and pretzels, you're not going to just say, like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to figure it out when I'm there. You pack a healthy snack, right?
Mhm.
So, same way with relationships where I want you to have your self-soothing strategies, tools. I want you to have those decided ahead of time so that you know if you're going into something that might be difficult, you have it ready to go. So that's
Mhm.
my first tip is always have it ready to go. Use the notes app on your phone, right? Like have it quick, easy to access. These are my self-soothing things that I do when I'm
Mhm.
emotionally dysregulated. And then the second thing I would say this gets to be fun for you, hopefully, to figure out what are the things that work for you. We are all different. One of the things that I teach my clients that I think will be helpful for your audience is learning how to use self compassion work, the mindfulness self compassion. So, being aware when you are emotionally dysregulated, catching it as soon as possible,
Mhm.
acknowledging it, not judging it, giving yourself so much compassion. And then it's about asking yourself, okay, what do I need to come back to my securely attached place? Like what
Mhm.
is it? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to call a friend? Do I need to take a hot bath? Do I need to set my phone down? I'm going to go journal, right?
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, what would it look like for me to come back to my secure self?
Mm.
And then there's so much more there in terms of developing your securely attached identity and all the belief work around that. But I think catching yourself in the moment, having compassion, and then getting curious, what do I need to come back to an emotionally regulated place? And then going to do the thing. Don't ignore it. Go do it. And
Mm.
then your brain
Yeah.
learns, oh, emotions are not a big deal. I can get emotionally dysregulated. I trust
Yeah.
myself to take care of myself. It's not a big deal. And then you're breaking that cycle of, oh, these big, big waves of emotions because
Mhm.
your brain knows that, oh, yeah, if I'm dysregulated, I can tune in and I can figure it out. So what
Mhm.
used to be tsunamis with your emotions can then become baby waves because you're learning how to, tune in and take care of yourself as it's happening.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's so important to be able to tune in instead of judging, like, why am I feeling this way? It's like, oh, like, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. Like, how can I make myself in this moment feel a little bit better? And like turning the phone on do not disturb and going for a walk can be really freaking
Yes.
helpful. I think for me, there's a book, I'm sure you're familiar. It's very popular called The Four Agreements. And there's one where he says, like, never make assumptions. And I think that that has helped me too. I'm able to tune in and be like, I don't actually know why this person is not responding to me. And I don't
Yes.
actually know why they're not choosing me, but it doesn't really matter. Right. Like, stop making those stories about
Yes.
everyone else. I think that's really helpful. Right.
Oh, absolutely. That's something I teach my clients. We call it reality testing. Checking
Yeah.
in with reality.
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, what's the story I'm telling myself? Do I have
Yeah.
any evidence to support this story? And then what is
Hmm.
the alternative here? What could actually be going on?" So absolutely checking in with the reality is very helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
there's so many strategies And I will say this because I think it's important, learning the different parts of yourself. So if you have that anxiously attached part of yourself and you're noticing that she's showing up for you, how can you identify, oh, that's my 7-year-old self who, maybe didn't get her needs met. So being able to actually identify where did that part of you come from and speak to that part of yourself as you would, a
Mhm.
7-year-old child, right? Because we
Yeah.
all have these parts of ourselves. So you wouldn't judge that person. You wouldn't say, "Oh, you're overreacting." You would say, "No, okay, I see you. I get it. I know this is hard for
Mhm.
you. This is bringing up so much. This reminds you of blank blank blank." You know,
Yeah.
really just be aware of those parts of yourself.
Mhm. I love it, and the inner child stuff is difficult, but I think it's
Mhm.
so important to be able to go back to that place, right?
We all think
Um
it's cheesy.
Mhm.
I used to like I would tell my
Yeah.
clients to do it and I'd be like, "I'm never going to do that." And then you
Yeah.
start doing it and it's so incredibly helpful. So if you've kind of put
Mhm.
off inner child work, this is your sign. Go do it. It's very, very helpful.
Mm.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a group of women recently, and this came up, and I told them that when I had first started doing the inner child stuff, like I would do like virtual therapy, and I wanted to close my laptop. It was like, this is so uncomfortable. Like I don't want to go
Yeah,
there. And now it's like my favorite technique. Like where I'm able to, I feel like if I close my eyes, I can see my 13-year-old self. I can go right back there. And I actually find that that is so helpful.
it's so
So it's
helpful.
encouraging. Yeah, it's encouraging to
Yes,
people. Like just push through the
let's do
uncomfortable part
it.
of it. Yeah. What is your perspective on dating apps? Because dating has changed, right? Like dating 20
Mhm.
years ago versus dating now. Can you use a dating app without like triggering these anxious avoidant behaviors? Do you feel like it's making it worse? What are your thoughts on these apps?
So a lot of people are using the dating apps wrong.
Okay.
Dating apps are a tool. I like to think of them as an opportunity creation tool. They are not a relationship building tool. So you really want to be intentional with how you use them. Um, I like to think of it as building a habit. I would love if somebody was to build the routine of maybe 20 minutes at a time, 4 times a week. So I'm not
Mhm.
endlessly swiping as I'm watching Netflix and spending, 3 hours on the dating apps and not being intentional, right?
Yep.
Because then that's getting us very unintentional matches. So I would want
Mhm.
you to be in a really good state for 20 minutes at a time, 3 to 4 times a week. And then you're realizing, okay, this is simply opportunity creation. I'm not actually building a relationship. So obviously, have a back and forth, but then go to the phone call, go on the coffee date, get off the app. And then it's also about, okay, what would my securely attached self do? Are there people that you need to unmatch with? Are there people that you need to not give your energy to? Because that's why people hate the apps. They're doing
Mhm.
all this energy investment and then they're not getting the ROI and then they're blaming the apps. But the reality is you're just using them wrong. You're not being intentional enough.
Mhm.
And you're not, quitting to you're not stopping your energy investment when the investment no longer makes sense.
Right. Okay. So in that case, do you think that you need to be like securely attached to truly use the apps correctly, or can you have these other attachment styles and use the apps in the right way?
So this is where it's so interesting, right? Because I never want to give people this idea of, oh, you have to be fully healed before you start to
Right.
date. I don't believe in that. And I'll tell you this, if you work on becoming secure, it's going to make your apps use much more enjoyable and much easier. I can think about when I used apps when I wasn't securely attached versus when I was, two totally different experiences.
Mhm.
So I think it's worthwhile to be working on becoming secure.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then as much as you can, just really, really focusing on the boundaries around the app use, right? Of okay, building that routine, etc.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah. And then I sorry, I could go for hours on this topic, but
I love it.
the thing is if let's say I have an anxious attachment style, I'm 50% anxious, I'm 50% secure. So I have some ability to show up securely attached. Let's say I attract somebody who's 87% avoidant. Okay,
Mhm.
that's going to be a tough relationship dynamic. That's going to actually do more damage. That's going to actually maybe up my anxious percentage. But let's
Mm.
say I'm 50% anxious, but then I attract somebody who's 70% secure and they have a little bit of anxious, and we come together and we intentionally co create secure
Mhm.
attachment. That could work out. So
Mhm.
it's not this black and white thing. There's a lot of gray, and I think
Mhm.
people kind of get in this place of like, well, I could never date somebody with avoidant attachment. Actually, you could. You know,
Yeah.
if they had some secure traits and if they are owning it and they're working on becoming secure, you can actually create a healthy relationship. It's
Right.
Mhm.
harder. It is harder, but it is
Yeah.
possible.
Mhm. I like that you said you don't have to be healed to be in a relationship. I think when you are not in a relationship, you almost feel like you are healed because you're not being triggered constantly. And then you start dating
Yeah.
again and you realize like, "Oh, shit. I'm here again." Right? And so I think it's important because it's so easy to be like, "Obviously, I'm not good at this, and obviously I'm never gonna find anyone," so you just kind of give up on it, right? And so I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think that's important for people to hear.
The more healing work you do before a relationship, then
Mhm.
I think the more comfortable you're going to be doing the healing work that comes from being in a relationship.
Yeah.
And there's certain healing that can only happen in a relationship, right? So, but this idea that yeah, we'll become fully healed and perfect, and no, it doesn't
No.
exist. You can work on becoming more securely attached and showing up secure more often. I think that's a great
Mhm.
goal.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. How does your Empowered, Secure, Loved program help people shift their attachment styles?
Yes, so this is using my proven framework. It's a four-part
Mhm.
framework. Some of the stuff we talked about today, but really helping people fully release past trauma. We have to revisit our past relational trauma, make sense of it, understand the roots of our attachment style, and then work on being able to let it go. And then I help people with rewiring their belief systems. So, beliefs about themselves, beliefs about relationships. How do you develop those securely attached belief systems that make it easy to attract and maintain healthy
Mhm.
relationships? And then the third thing I take people through is embodying secure attachment. So building that securely attached identity, and then the practices that help you with, okay, this is how I actually show up secure when I'm dating
Mhm.
and in relationships. And then finally, I teach people all the skills, assertive communication, conflict navigation, red flags, yellow flags, etc. Pacing is a big one. So how do you slow down your emotional pacing? So
Yeah.
that's the last thing that we do. And then people who go through this program, it really is transformational in terms of helping them finally embody that secure version of themselves and then start attracting a different kind of partner.
Amazing. I love it. What is one truth that you wish every woman understood about love, worthiness, and relationships? Big question here.
Ooh, hmm. I think this is just at the core of everything. I'm going to go back to don't fall into the lie of I'll be happy when and
Mm.
looking for
Mhm.
external things to make you feel good about yourself or to prove your worthiness. A relationship does not fill a void. It actually can't make you feel anything that you can't feel yourself. A relationship is simply a multiplier for the love that you have in your life. So it gets to come in and multiply the love in your life, but it certainly is not going to fill a void.
I love it. That's such a good
Mm.
answer. Okay, Dr. Anderson, at the end of our episodes, we do something called rapid fire, and it's our favorite part. Basically, we are going to read a statement that we've seen online that people commonly assume, and you're going to tell us if it's a myth if it's true or if it depends. Often it depends, but we're going to do our very best to make it rapid fire. But if you do need to expand on anything, feel free. Okay.
Great.
Are you ready to go?
Yes, let's do it. Let's dive in.
All right. The first one is always ending up with emotionally unavailable men means that you might also be emotionally unavailable.
Truth.
Hmm. The ick in early dating is usually a sign of emotional unavailability.
It depends. Absolutely.
Okay.
So the ick coming from avoidant attachment is a way to distance yourself. The
Right.
ick coming from a securely attached place is a genuine, this person is not compatible for me and I don't want to spend my
Oh,
time with them. So it
Okay.
depends which
okay.
attachment style it's coming from.
Okay.
Interesting.
You will know you've healed your attachment wounds when you don't get triggered in early dating.
False.
Mhm. Avoidance ultimately do not want love and connection.
Oh, absolutely false.
Mhm.
Is that
Fe-
online somewhere?
Yeah, this idea that
Oh,
like avoidants are like they don't want they just want like I guess like sex or like any of those things, but they don't want like the actual connection. But I feel like that's not true, right?
It's not true. See, you're
mhm.
motivating me to get the word out. All these online things, I just oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, absolutely
Oh
false.
yeah.
They do want love that just doesn't feel safe.
Mhm.
Okay.
Jeanette and I are good people to come to if you ever want myths because our algorithm thinks that we're crazy because we look up
Yeah.
all of the things people are saying. So we see it all.
Okay, great. Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
You
have
ever
to
need
send me these.
content?
I want to see what people are saying. It's
Oh
terrible.
gosh, it's crazy.
I'll start sending them.
Okay.
Feeling butterflies in early dating is often a sign of nervous system dysregulation.
Yes, and it can be attraction as well when it's also met with comfort and reassurance and coming back to a secure place.
Okay. Being vulnerable on a first date is usually a sign of trauma bonding, not building an emotional connection.
Depends on the level of vulnerability. If I'm talking about my tough day at work, great.
Yeah.
If I'm unpacking all of my childhood trauma, yes, trauma bonding.
Okay. Good.
Right.
And the last one, I think we all know, but you cannot change your attachment style.
Absolute myth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Love
I
Okay.
am living proof of that one myself.
it.
Amazing. That was a great round.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
So
Okay.
much
Well, thank
fun.
you so much for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate your time so much. I learned so much. Vic,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Me
you
too.
learned a lot too, and I know our listeners will as well. This is a topic we've wanted to discuss for a long time, but we wanted the perfect person on. So thank you so much again for your time. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you, listen to your podcast, book with you, all of that stuff?
This has been so fun. Thank you both for having me. I love these kinds of conversations. I am on Instagram at Dr. Morgan Coaching, Dr. Morgan Coaching. And then also my podcast is probably the best way to connect with me, 2 episodes a week. And it is available anywhere podcasts are aired. Let's get vulnerable.
Love
I
it.
think if you like today's episode, then yeah, you'll love the podcast. You can join Vic in
Mhm.
binging all of the episodes. So
Exactly.
thank you so much for having me, ladies. This was really fun.
So
Thank you
fun.
so
Thank you.
much.